Hello, welcome back to another episode of Becoming Chiron, the key to unlocking healing and personal alchemy, with me, your hostess, Ursula Duffy. Today, this is episode 9, and today we're going to be talking about the two, I'm calling it the mighty squares that happen pretty much concurrently with the Uranus opposition that we talked about in episode 7. So go back to that if you haven't listened to that one yet. And I'll be going into Neptune and Pluto with 2 specific squares that we'll be talking about. And we'll be talking about the planets and my experience of the squares that's been going on for the last several years as like an undertone and something else that's been happening in the background of everything that I've already shared in every episode so far. So if you haven't already, I recommend kind of going back to the beginning, listening to the episodes in order as they kind of build on each other at this point in my personal story and shares. So as we always do, we will start today with a Astro Weather Check, and then we will get into the nuts and bolts of today's discussion. And it's kind of interesting and funny that today we're talking about squares because we've got squares for days at this point in the skies. I know many people who are going through it right now, and the energies have been intense, and they'll continue to be intense from now until pretty much the end of the year. So it's not a bad thing. It's always in how you work with it. As I've said before, we're here to learn how to express the highest vibration energy of our chart and this experience. So what we have going on right now is the sun is in Virgo. We had a Virgo new moon last Friday in the early morning. I think it was around like 4 a.m. So now we have the moons waxing through Scorpio, approaching the first quarter square phase, which it will over the next couple of days. So that's one of our squares for the weekend. I forgot today is Friday, September 2nd, and I'm recording this around noon in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So we also have Mars square the sun. That just happened over the last few days. And we're getting into Venus square Mars. And then we have an upcoming Mercury retrograde. So tension, as we have talked about with squares. Squares are tension, but that grittiness is there for a reason. So when we have Mars square the sun, we're talking about the 2 planets that relate to pretty much that solar plexus area of ourselves, that life force, the drive, the energy. So we can feel a little bit stuck when these squares happen. So if you've been feeling that, that's okay. That's part of the collective experience, knowing where it's happening in your chart. Mars is in Gemini, Sun in Virgo, like I said. So if those themes are coming up for you of the houses that you have the square happening, that's what's going on. That's the tension. Find your balance, and ease your way through it. It doesn't last very long. We're kind of on the other side of it already. And the biggest thing that's kind of going on right now is Mars has secured itself in the sign of Gemini, which is where it'll be until January. This is where the upcoming Mars retrograde is happening, and we'll get into that with material and content that we'll be putting out eventually. And then we have Venus right now at 26 degrees of Leo. So as Venus enters Virgo next, then we'll have Venus square Mars. So that can bring up issues and challenges and bring things to the surface in our relationships. So there's those themes and undercurrents kind of happening as well. Mercury has been in the what's called the pre-shadow phase of the retrograde. And all that really means is that it's going over in quote unquote direct motion, the same degrees that it will be going retrograde. So Mercury is at 6 degrees of Libra right now. The pre-shadow started when Mercury was in Virgo, which was like a hot minute. Mercury kind of zipped through the sign of Virgo. I felt like it was over in an instant. So you may be noticing themes already start happening with the retrograde might mean for you. As soon as Mercury entered those late degrees of Virgo, I had 3 old friends reach out to me, which is typical Mercury retrograde stuff. So if you're noticing things like that happen, if you're noticing things, actually, I think it was 4 old friends. So really interesting. And if you're noticing that kind of stuff happening, I've already noticed some technical glitches start to happening and that kind of thing. So roll with it. It's always here to teach us something. It's always here to teach us how to pause. So there's beauty in that, even though it feels a little frustrating. And we'll get into that. I will talk about at the end the offerings that we have at Sea Goddess to help you through Mercury Retrograde and to kind of flip the script and change your mind about the whole experience. So those are our squares, our tension in the skies, if you will. And we'll be kind of steeping in this energy of those squares for the next few days. So enjoy yourself. We're coming up on a holiday weekend. Like I said, just find your balance, stay cool, especially with Mars and Gemini. Now, Gemini is a sign that relates a lot to the way that we communicate and information. So remember to respond rather than react. There's power in the pause in all of this. If you're feeling heated or argumentative or anything, get that energy out in a different way. Don't lash out at people, and most definitely don't project it. Keep your cool, stay grounded, stay balanced, take care of you, do what you need to do, fill your cup up. And that advice kind of goes for the next several months as well. So that is our Astro Weather Check for today. And I actually heard from a listener, which made me smile and warms my heart. And she gave me permission to share her comments. And I'm so grateful and honored. Jackie, thank you so much. If you're listening to this and you're born in 79, 80, or 81 in particular, I feel you. And Jackie feels me too. She's a 1980 baby. And she said, seriously, the most beautifully brutal yet absolutely magical time of our lives. And I love how she spells it. She spelled absolutely, A-B in lowercase, S-O-U-L in uppercase, and then U-T-E-L-Y all in lowercase. So soul really stands out in that word, the way that she spelled it. She says, so grateful to have synced up with you finally, as I've been praying and setting an intention to connect with other soul sisters experiencing this opposition as extreme as I am. And sisters, she also spells lowercase S-I, capital S-T-A-R, and then lowercase s. So we got souls and stars, and I love it. She says, but finally, she said she was tired for the day, but wanted to make sure that she reached out. And I so appreciate that. And then she also commented on the YouTube video as well. And she said, finally, I prayed and sent intentions for this Virgo new moon, and here you are. So grateful. All synchronicities, too much to type. Love it, love it, love it. This is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm here. This is why I created this show. So I'm so honored. I'm so grateful. Jackie, thank you so, so much. And I'm grateful and always looking for anyone to reach out to me, share something, share your chart. We can, I can do a brief discussion at the beginning of an episode if you want. We can talk about it. And I'm here. I'm feeling this. I'm going through this. That's why I'm sharing this whole experience. So thank you, Jackie. And I'm so happy that you reached out. So let's get into episode 9. And there's some kind of construction going on outside. I apologize if there's any background noise that I can't remove from this episode, but I pushed the button, and I'm rolling with it. So just a recap on my chart. I was born in 1980. I don't know if I shared that yet. 1980, October. And I was born with Pluto, like I said, at 21 degrees of Libra. And I was born with Neptune at 20 degrees of Sagittarius. These planets are what's known as like they're generational by sign because they move so slowly. So I am of the Pluto in Libra and Neptune and Sagittarius generation. I've also shared, I believe, that I have Neptune square my moon exactly, almost to the degree. So that's kind of an undercurrent to all of this as well. It's getting super activated. I have Neptune in the 8th house, and I have Pluto in the 6th. Sixth is just to recap, our routines, our habits, our day-to-day life, work, what we do to keep our bodies functioning at an optimal level. It relates very much to our health and our daily practices and our habits. And I've learned throughout my journey, and I find this to be very true, that kind of a higher expression of the sixth house is being of service. Eighth house is the space that relates to where we merge with other people. It's commonly referred to as like sex, death, those kinds of things live in the eighth house. Eighth house is a lot of energy that is kind of hidden. It's commonly called like the closet, or, you know, space where we keep things hidden. And it relates also very much to contracts, things that we have with other people, like marriage, things like that. So the eighth house is kind of a mysterious place. And having Neptune there makes it even more mysterious. So let's talk about the two planets first. Neptune is the planet that relates to our connection to source, ultimately. It is the planet that speaks to our imagination, the dreamscape, dream world. It speaks to the parts of us that can be a little mysterious. It relates very much to tendencies toward addiction and escapism. Neptune is very imaginal. Think of when the caterpillar is kind of cooking in the cocoon, those imaginal cells that are getting activated for the transformation process. That's Neptune. Neptune can be very hard to put your finger on. Things that are mystical experiences, like you can have the most magical, mystical experience in a one moment, and then the next moment turn around and wonder if that was actually real. Neptunian energy, I think about a few weeks ago, I actually got to witness I call it the birth of fog. I don't know how else to describe it. I got to watch fog coming out of the ocean and like generating and spreading out into the marine layer that formed after that. Like I got to see where it came out of the water. That's Neptune. Think of the ocean, think of the vastness of our souls on an energetic level. Think of the vastness of the ocean and how it's not even possible to know the depth for real because we can't even see that far down. It's so dark. Think of all the gear we have to use as humans to even get to that point to explore. So, you know, Neptune was Poseidon. So, you know, god of the sea, god of the ocean. So it's all of those things that we can't quite put our finger on, but we know they're there. We can't see them, but we can feel them. And that's where the energy gets a little bit hairy, dicey. Neptunian energy can also be related to the feeling of like getting hoodwinked. Neptune can be kind of a dick, honestly. Some of this experience has just been, we'll get into it. So that's the general feel vibe of Neptune. I did pull out my Black Moon Astrology deck, and I'll read a little bit from the Neptune and the Pluto cards, just to give you all a different perspective from somebody else's words besides my own. And for my placement personally, as I said, I'm a Taurus rising, so my eighth house is Sagittarius. I have Neptune in the eighth. And I've shared my experience up to this point of my life, a lot of things. And Neptune also relates to our intuition, you know, our connection to source, like I said. So I've kept my Neptune in the closet pretty much my entire life. My Neptune has been very comfortably hidden in my eighth house up until this whole spiritual reawakening process. So for me, letting Neptune out of the closet has been part of this Neptune Square experience. And it's been wild. It's been very interesting. And I can say that Neptunian experiences in general, for me personally, have been incredibly beautiful, but also incredibly haunting at all at the same time. Think of dreams. Think of the dreamscape. Think of you wake up and you just know you're so connected still to that realm. And then you remember bits and pieces of it. Some of it sticks with you forever. Like it's just Neptune can be confusing. So think about that and then think about, being an intuitive your entire life, but not really feeling safe to let that be known to family, friends, whatever, because of all the things that we're taught and, growing up, going to Catholic school, all of that. So that's been general experience for me, having Neptune in the eighth. And Neptune squaring my moon. My moon's, like I said, is 20 degrees Virgo in the fifth. I also have Jupiter right there. So I was born with Neptune square moon and Jupiter. And finding my joy has been a very challenging learning experience over the course of my life. Like I said, I think in the last episode, like learning how to feel okay, being happy and not feeling guilty for it is a big part of it. But also kind of just like what that whole, there's a mystery to me still a little bit about having moon Jupiter in the fifth. Like I feel like my creativity hasn't really even fully been unleashed yet, because I just let Neptune out of the closet. So now I can really explore that part of myself more. So, like I said, feeling hoodwinked, kind of like mystery, the tension in the square, the threshold experience, all of that, big part of that energetic setup in my natal chart. And then we have Pluto. Pluto is the planet that relates to our capacity for transformation. Pluto is very much related to our soul on a very deep level, kind of soul lessons that at our core we came into this lifetime to experience. It is, my astrology teacher always called Pluto a Buddha incognito. Pluto can relate very much to those experiences of things that we would call like shamanistic, or things that feel, like I said last time, I believe I called them le petit mort, so like little deaths. Pluto and Neptune both relate to that, those experiences of our lives in a big way. Pluto, I have Pluto so close to my sun, so it's kind of like infused in my core. But I'm not saying that hasn't been a challenge. It has been. But being okay with these transformation processes and coming out on the other side of them, grateful, even if it was like a death experience or like an actual, like an NDE or something like that. Neptune and Pluto can relate to those as well. But coming out of these experiences, a more evolved soul, to an extent, is what Pluto is really all about. Having Pluto in the sixth house, my health has been a challenge for me pretty much my entire life. I'll get to that in another episode, because that ties in very much to the Chiron piece, like I talked about in the first episode with the yod that I have. So but it also has, through all of these experiences, helped me realize what I'm here to do, who I am on a soul level, and how my purpose ties greatly into being of service. So the Neptune and the Pluto square pretty much happen concurrently. They kind of start percolating around age 38, I'd say, kind of when all of the other things I've talked about, like as if the Uranus opposition wasn't enough, we have these two things happening at the same time. So these only happen once in our entire lifetimes because the planets move so slowly. Pluto, roughly 248 years. Pluto's orbit's a bit more elliptical, so it spends different amounts of time in different signs. Neptune, I think it's 164 or 167 years. So we can experience a Neptune opposition in our lifetimes. Nobody will ever experience a Pluto opposition. we only get the squares and one square. So these will flavor the experience of the Uranus opposition for sure. Knowing where they are in your chart natally will give you the setup, and I'll describe my experience. And we'll let you know where these themes are coming up, where these things are happening. And for me, they most definitely started percolating in 2018 when I was doing my astrology apprenticeship. And then because they move so slowly, the energy kind of builds for a while on both sides of the exactness of the squares. And you'll feel it. You can feel it. It's like there's more undertones to that shit or get off the pot experience of these squares plus the Uranus opposition. So the other thing that is unique to me in this experience is I have my midheaven at 24 degrees of Capricorn in my 9th house. Midheaven is pretty much related to our highest expression of self, like our soul's gift to the world is one of the best ways I've heard it described, and I agree with that for sure. 9th house is where we explore. And 9th house is the space that relates very much to higher learning, like, longer programs and fields of study, long distance travel, experiences that can feel kind of foreign to us, foreign languages. It relates to our connection to our higher self in a big way. I feel like that's one of the lesser discussed themes of the 9th house. It's where we expand our horizons, pretty much. So, and it relates to publishing and teaching. So midheaven at 24 degrees, Libra, I have Pluto at 21, Libra. So another part of my Pluto Square experience has been Pluto transiting my midheaven, which doesn't happen for everybody. So I started really feeling this when I was in my apprenticeship program. I described all of the things already as far as, the job things and what all those experiences taught me. Pluto entered the sign of Capricorn in 2008, and it's just about to leave next year, going into Aquarius. And for me personally, I think this is the root of my, what I described as my deconditioning experiences. And kind of my unlearning and unschooling. And as the square is happening, it's going over my midheaven at the same time. So it makes total sense that it would completely transform and change how I work, what I do in the outside world. And also my inner teacher coming out during this time as well. I always kind of have fallen into that role as teacher, but I never kind of put myself out there and teaching classes and that kind of thing. So we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the first class that I taught. So that's pretty cool. And kind of that being on the tail end of its experience. And like I said, these planets move so slowly. Pluto only goes like, quote unquote, direct for a few degrees, and then it goes retrograde. So these experiences for us are multi-layered, many, many years, many, many chapters. So that's how it works because of the way that the planet moves. So that's been, and the other thing that's been happening during the Pluto square for me in particular is Pluto's been trining my moon, Jupiter conjunction in Virgo. Earth trines Earth. That's the harmonious energetic flow between chart points, planets. You can have that set up natally, but also by transit, like I'm experiencing with Pluto. And natally, my moon Jupiter trines my midheaven. So having all of these things happen during this experience makes total sense, kind of now that I'm aware of it and know about it. And it's been like death, for real, because it's been a reinvention of myself, but in that it's not really an invention because I'm getting to the core of who I truly am and what I really came here to do. And then also part of this experience getting me into being of service for real. like in my readings and, coming out of the spiritual closet, quote unquote, and sharing this with people and helping people. Like my tagline is live in touch with your soul. Like that's a perfect way to describe how this experience has been for me, but then how I get to help other people do the same thing. The Neptune Square has been interesting. Neptune's been transiting the sign of Pisces since 2012, and Pisces is my 11th house. The 11th house relates to our tribe, groups of friends, groups of people, but also how we craft and what we do, our vision. It's our vision for our future to an extent as well. So Neptune going through my 11th has been very interesting. Having Pisces generally in that 11th house space throughout my entire life has been very interesting as well. I don't have any planets in the 11th natally. So as Neptune's been going through my 11th, so we have the Neptune Square 11 to 8, and it's been also opposing all of my Virgo planets. So like I talked about, whenever we have a cluster on one side, when things go through the opposite sign is where a lot of the lessons come into play, where we really get to learn about the duality and the energy of the opposing sign. So Neptune has been not only squaring my natal Neptune, but also opposing my moon and Jupiter. It's going to get to opposing my Jupiter soon, because Neptune's pretty much, I think, past 20 degrees of Pisces at this point. I don't think it's going back to 20 degrees of Pisces in this retrograde, but we'll see. But I have a few more years of this experience. I feel like the Pluto Square is kind of wrapping up and the Neptune Square is still like lingering. So like I talked about, Neptunian energy, Neptune is the modern ruler of the sign of Pisces. So everything relates that I talked about with Neptune with Piscean energy as well. So I've seen my tribe change over the years, over and over and over and over and over, like waves in the ocean. And that has taught me a lot about non-attachment, for one, and letting go. Because some of those experiences of, I wouldn't say losing tribe, but it's more like when my vibration changes, I feel like my tribe changes. And some of those things, some of the people that I've met along the way, I've had near and dear and beautiful relationships with. And when those people have gone away, sometimes it's been just like poof. We're just out of touch. And I never hear from them again. And that's hard in this human experience. Like being a Libra, I know part of my lessons are relationships, but the Neptunian aspect of this, as the square has been building and happening over these years, it's a grieving process. Neptune can relate very much to grief. And it's just been weird. Some of the experiences, it's just been weird. Like I said, Neptune can be a dick, and we can have that experience of that feeling of being hoodwinked. And that has definitely come with the experience and with the relationships with some of the people that I've encountered along the way. But I learned about spiritual bypassing many years ago, and I always try to not do that, because Neptune can relate to that as well. But and honor my feelings, but also know truly, always in the background, as I'm still feeling the feeling of what's happening, that it's happening for my highest good. That's the Neptunian energy as well. So the square there has been interesting. Opposing my moon, also a huge part of this process. One thing, again, that not everybody will get to experience in their lifetimes. I signed up for it, so here I am. And just I really want to drop into my 5th house space more. That's an intention that I'm setting, because I used to draw. I used to be very artistic when I was a child. So I really want to get back to that now that I've had this year of revamping my day-to-day out of the corporate world and everything, and just get back into that creative space, especially with this opposition that I have going on now with Neptune. So that is an intention and a dream. So that's set at this point. And just to bring some other things into this, Neptune energy, just for other, reference points. Think about the movie Fantasia. Think about the movie, if you've seen it, The Shape of Water. Those two films really, really capture Neptunian energy very well. For Pluto, think about, if you've ever seen it, the movie What Dreams May Come. That's very, very much both planets. These two planets are actually Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are what's known as the transpersonal planets. So these energies take us beyond ourselves. They take us back to source to an extent. They take us out of this physical world and lived experience, kind of home to an extent. Very helpful to know where these planets are on your chart. If you're of my age, then also very helpful to know where these squares are happening. And I'm sure that the themes will make a lot more sense if you've never looked at your chart before and then you learn it. That's been my experience. All of this happening concurrently, like I said, has been a lot, but it's been beautiful and I wouldn't change anything about it. And I'm sure that there's more to come. I'm sure that there's more to be revealed out of all of this, as I'm still everything's still kind of steeping at this point. Uranus hasn't officially opposed itself yet. So more and more chapters, more and more layers that I'll be sharing along the way. So I do want to get into the two cards. So this is the Black Moon Astrology Cards by Susan Shepard. This was a gift that was given to me by one of the friends that has recently vibed out for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I have this deck thanks to her. And we will go into the Neptune card. Oh, and the other thing too that I wanted to mention about Neptune, I attended the NORWAC astrology conference back in the spring of 2020 when it was virtual. And Stephen Forrest, I've talked about Stephen, The Inner Sky, like I said, was the first book that I read. I just love him. I shared the principles in the other episode, the one I did, the astrology facts and truth one. And he was one of the teachers at that conference. So I got to sit in a Stephen Forrest session, which was incredible. And one of his whole presentations was about Neptune, and he called it where we get to be our martyr or mystic. And that relates so well to the general energy. I just thought it was brilliant, but also the experience that I've shared, because a lot of the things too that have come in with this Neptune experience is finding my spiritual tribe, like my true spiritual tribe. It's Pisces energy. And with the, people that have vibed out or the relationships that have ended, do I see them as lost and mourn and just stay in that energy and be the martyr? Or do I see the higher vibration of it and be the mystic? Now, keeping Neptune in the closet in my 8th house, martyr or mystic? Am I going to nail myself to the wall and just sit there and not be the intuitive person that I am? Or am I going to let Neptune out of the closet and be the mystic? So these are the choices that we have with these planetary energies. So in the Black Moon Astrology deck, Neptune is card number 10, and the word on the card is sacrifice. And the description is, the whole idea of compassion is based on a keen awareness of the interdependence of all these living beings, which are all part of one another and all involved in one another. And that's a quote by Thomas Merton. And I just want to read a couple of lines. You are being directed into an area which may feel like it is unknowable. Surrendering to the mystery may work best now. Although nebulous, hazy, and indirect, the energy of Neptune is one of the easiest to see. Like I said, we feel it. Where Neptune is placed in a chart is where we are most inspired, but also an area where we deceive ourselves. It is the place of mishaps, bringing on undercurrents of strangeness. For so many, Neptune is the source of many troubles, since this card indicates escapism as well as beauty. Dreams, film, art, disappointment, and reverie all fall under the rulership of Neptune. Refusing to look at what's real, or simply being unable to, as well as seeing enemies as friends and vice versa, are all traits brought on by this watery planet. This is a time where some may try to manipulate with their crisis and rescue cycles, exhausting friends and family with their many problems. There may be a lack of boundaries and confusion where some may orchestrate their victimhood. Be very certain that the victim is not you. And there's 2 more pages of this, which I'm not going to read. If you have the deck, check it out. It starts on page 52. Spot on. And I did forget to mention the boundaries part too. And that's been a big lesson in these experiences for me as well. Because, like I said, think of the ocean and the vastness, it's boundless. Water just flows and settles in anything that it floods over. Interesting experiences with this planet. And then for the Pluto card, it's card number 11. And the word on the card is transformation. And the description is, or the quote, "People living deeply have no fear of death." And that's by Anais Nin. That's beautiful. And just a few paragraphs from the description here. Pluto, the smallest and outermost planet in our solar system, probably carries the most weight. It is the planet of extremes. Birth, sex, and death are Pluto's themes. In Greek legend, Pluto was the god of the underworld, Hades. His earlier name, Hades, came to designate the dwelling place for the dead. The name Hades means the unseen, and it is a good description of the energies of Pluto, which tend to transform areas of the astrological chart without us knowing until the explosion or blowout. Pluto was discovered in 1930, and although it is now considered a dwarf planet, transits from Pluto are extremely powerful and bring on significant life changes. In traditional astrology, Pluto is the highest octave of Mars, but has some similarities to Saturn, which is also a force of oppression. Pluto governs renewal and birth. It brings to the surface things that have been hidden or are felt deep inside. These are sometimes painful to confront, or they are embarrassing or taboo. The taboo is also something that lives in the 8th house. I forgot to mention that. So if you have the deck, like I said, read on. There's a couple more pages to that, which starts on page 55. And I also got out my Rebecca Campbell Work Your Light deck, and I wanted to just pull a card for everybody listening today, especially with what I said in the Astro Weather forecast at the beginning, with the energies that we're in and that we will continue to be in for the rest of the year. So I just want to pull a card for everyone as a collective group reading right now. And the card that I pulled is Council of Light, Divine Orchestration, Helpers in the Subtle Realms. So like I said, remember who you are, stay calm in all of this. We have help on the other side. All we have to do is ask. And I will read the description from this as well. Let's see which part of it. Council of Light. So the Council of Light card is in this deck, suit 4, the activation cards. So let's get to that page. The Council of Light is a team of benevolent beings who are here to assist the raising of consciousness of the planet. They are here to help you achieve your soul mission and are guiding you every step of the way. However, because we live in a world where free will reigns, they cannot help you without your permission. If you would like their assistance, it is time to ask them. They can help with all kinds of requests. Nothing is too big or too small. Think of them as your personal team of helpers in the spirit realm. They are willing and ready to step in and get to work. What would you like help with? What tasks would you like to delegate to them? The Council of Light is a team of ascended masters, light beings, angels, and guides devoted to the rising of Earth and all humanity. If you are a light worker, it is from them that you receive your personal mission. Like a spirit world United Nations, they want to thank you so much for doing this work and devoting your life to uplifting the planet. Pray to them for clarity and guidance regarding your personal mission. Put in your requests and let them get to work. And the activation, it says, hold the card to your heart and say, Council of Light, I am ready to receive your help for fulfilling my personal dharmic mission. Thank you for guiding me with clarity every step of the way, and for sending me helpers and experiences that delight my mind, body, and soul. I love that, and I will continue to do that because at the beginning, before I hit the record button, I always ask my, guides to come in and help me. And I work a lot with Archangel Sambofan as far as the communication, and I always pray to him as well for clarity and ease and grace in the way that I communicate everything that needs to come through. And I always ask for messages of the highest vibration for anyone that's listening and also for myself. So that was a beautiful card for me in particular, because it talked about how some of these things are still a little bit of a mystery for me. So that was a nice, beautiful reminder for me as well to remember my team and to call on them more. So I'm going to wrap it up there as far as the content for today. Again, I apologize for any background noise that was going on. I don't know what the hell is going on outside right now, but I'll do my best to silence or, I'm not so good with audio editing at this point, but apologies if they are necessary, but I didn't want to stop recording. So I was in a groove. So thanks for bearing with me if there's any uncomfortable or annoying noises there that you had to hear beyond my words. So just a couple things with the Mercury retrograde that begins next week on the 9th. Officially, like I said, we've been in the pre-shadow. Mandy and I are teaching our Reaping the Rewards of Retrograde class again. We're going to start that on Wednesday, the 14th at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We decided to kind of hold off for a week because I wanted everyone to get back in this back to school groove and all those things. If you're a parent, I just wanted to give anyone who wanted to sign up a chance to kind of deal with that first rather than start right after Labor Day. So we're going to start that on the 14th. That's 3 consecutive Wednesdays. You can register for that on seagoddesshealingarts.com/classes. And the sessions are also recorded. If you can't attend live for whatever reason, you'll also, if you sign up, you'll get the recordings. So I hope to see any and all of you in that class. And we have a couple other things going on. We've got a pretty jam-packed month of September. We're doing our next Surf and Soul Drum Circle on Saturday the 10th at Caspian Point here in Atlantic City. That's the intersection of Caspian Avenue and Maine Avenue, M-A-I-N-E, like the state. Right on the bulkhead there, right in front of the bathroom lifeguard station. Not on the beach, we're on the bulkhead paved area. We found that works a little bit better for people. It's more accessible. So that is on the 10th, and hope to see you there if you're in the local area. We're also doing, these already started a couple of weeks ago, every Saturday. There is a farmer's market hosted by CROPS, which is an acronym, Communities Revitalizing Open Public Spaces. They're based right here in Atlantic City. They do a lot of incredible work for the community here. So their farmers markets on Saturdays at O'Donnell Park in Atlantic City. I think it's 12 to 3. So you can find that on their website, but we'll be there vending that same day on the 10th as well. So come out and show us some support, but also every Saturday show crops and vendors and all the people that are there. They're having education and all kinds of things with these farmers markets. It's an incredible lineup and experience. So get out there if you can, if you're local. And then I am starting teaching aromatherapy at Island Therapy in Summers Point. I'm doing a three workshop introductory series called The Beauty and Basics of Aromatherapy. And that starts on Tuesday, September 27th. I believe it's 7 p.m. You can register for that on the Island Therapy website under their events page. Space is limited to 10 people only. So if you want to sign up and join me for that, I'm so excited. I finally get to start teaching aromatherapy in person. So that'll be really great. I have a good curriculum put together for it. And then we'll also be enjoying the beauty of the plants too throughout this experience through the actual plant, but also the oils. So join me for that. And then you can also find all of our other upcoming events. We have a big festival planned for September 17th at the Lighthouse called The Last Splash. So that's our next big fundraising festival that's happening. You can find that also on seagoddesshealingarts.com/events. And we're still looking for vendors and volunteers and helpers for that day as well. And it's a fundraiser for the Absecon Lighthouse and the Marine Mammal Stranding Center. Two wonderful, wonderful, wonderful organizations. So that is all for today. And I hope to record again, probably just on the other side of the full moon on the 10th. And I'm pretty sure I'm letting it still marinate, but I'm pretty sure I'll be talking about the Chiron return in that episode, which is something I have not yet experienced, but I've worked with many people who have. And I want to dive into that as that's the next one that comes on the other side of the Uranus opposition around age 50. If you'd like to work with me, like I've always said, you can find all my services on seagoddesshealingarts.com/Ursa Alchemy. I would love to work with you, to read for you, or just to hear from you. ursaalchemy@gmail.com. And I finally saw the movie. So remember to be a maverick. Bye now.